Hello everyone, welcome to an analysis of dance. We'll discuss the movements and debuts of the Billboard Hot Dance charts in immaculate detail, with in-depth reviews of each debut each week. So yes, I'm on vacation. As you can see, I'm in my current room for the next week, and yeah, this week wasn't good. So let's get into it. So to start off, we have our top 10, where nothing changed, and under my current rules, this means I won't be covering any of it. Not really complaining, I'd like to get this episode out while I'm actually around on the internet, and yeah, not really a whole lot to say here, so let's move on. The interesting story though comes with our falls and fall-offs, where in the latter category, we actually lost some pretty significant ones, all things considered. With All That Really Matters by Eminem and Teddy Swims, Massive by Drake, and Don't You Worry by the Black Eyed Peas, Shakira, and David Guetta, or Exiting. I'm not really complaining about any of these, just saying. Our losers, meanwhile, were honestly all over the place in terms of quality. So for starters, we did have When I Talk by KX5 and Elder Brook down to 42. I honestly expected this coming. And also Wish on an Eyelash Part 2 by Morat and the Chainsmokers at 23, which I gotta really hope sticks around. It's a really good song. And hell, while I've grown a little bit on Cafe Con Leche by Pitbull, for it falling to 31, it was gonna exit naturally. But hey, if it's taking out Forever by Griffin and Ellie Duhay down to 50, and Woke Up in Love by Kygo Griffin and Callum Scott's 26, both of which are not very good at all and easily some of the weakest cuts on Alive. Yeah, I'm not really complaining. They need to go. Our jumps and comebacks, meanwhile, saw a lot more activity, starting off with an unsurprising return for Dash Star by Knock 2 to 48. I gotta hope this one sticks around. It would be really cool to see Knock 2 on a year-end list, and the song has really grown on me. As for our gains, well, these are all over the place too. I mean, I'm absolutely not complaining that In the Yuma by Chris Lake and Arctic is up to 29. It's gonna stick around, and that's a really good sign for Chris Lake going forward. But it also came with Dance 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 with My Hands 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 by Bella DJ at 21. Although given the fact that it's been removed from the majority of services and only has a different ID under Spotify, I can see this possibly falling or completely dying off next week, and that's only good for me. The song's awful. But the real surprise with me came with Fred again, who saw Jungle up to 36 and Turn on the Lights again with Swedish House Mafia and Future to 20, mostly thanks to a remix by Solomon that's actually doing way better than I think anyone expected. I mean, hey, if it means it repeats for another year-end list, I'm absolutely not complaining, but hey, it's also managed to bypass recurrent rules, so you never know, it could happen. But on to our honestly awful list of debuts this week, starting off with Okay, I remember when I first covered Subtronics early on in the series live, I was honestly glad that I didn't get to talk about his bloated, frequently badly produced, and awful album Fractals from this year. An absolutely terrible dubstep album that ranks amongst the worst albums of the 2020s so far. The album thankfully had zero impact back then, Gassed Up was the only song from it that actually stuck around, and the rest didn't even debut. But unfortunately though, fast forward to now, and we get two songs charting thanks to the remix album, being some of the earliest tracks to be covered on said remix album. So we start off with this, and wow, this is horrible. The blaring synth melody tries to give off a creepy haunted house vibe, but not only does it sound completely amateurish, the production is atrociously mixed and mastered where the lead is generic as all hell, the production is absolutely mixed like dog shit, and the drops are lazy written bullshit where the leads are so one note and tedious that I'm surprised anyone actually had the decency to remix them. This is one of those songs that just pisses me off the more I hear it. It's not one of the worst of the album when Fluked Up and especially Morning Coffee exists, but it's still absolutely fucking garbage. Skip it.
I don't wanna think too much. I don't wanna think at all. I just wanna lift you up till the whole world seems small.
This one really hurts me because I know Grabbitz is capable of some really good vocal performances, and I will admit his vocals here are pretty solid. He commands this song pretty well, but my god, the production around him is horrible. The verses have no muscle or culpable atmosphere to speak of. Grabbitz feels so awkwardly placed around an atonal mess of noise and clipping synths that sounds so bad, especially on the drops that are so aggressively irritating, with the blast of noise wall synths that ruins otherwise fine vocal melodies with how excruciating, boring, and one note they sound. Once again, this is far from the worst song on Subtronics' album, but when it sounds this bad and ruins Grabbitz on vocals, yeah, I've got no excuse for this. Pass. Okay, wow, all the signs for this one made me worried as hell checking it out. I mean, this is a collaboration with Sam Feldt and the late Whitney Houston, made in collaboration for a documentary on Whitney Houston's life. I wasn't expecting anything out of this, especially with Sam Feldt's really mixed history. I will be charitable though and say this isn't bad. I like the production with some decent disco elements, especially on the drops, and there are some really nice melodies that stick around in the song. It's pretty decently produced, especially for Sam Feldt standards. It actually gives off a bit of AAoD vibes, which is really solid. That being said, why is Whitney Houston even here? Her vocals are so loud and blaring that they just ruin the entire song. She sounds so muffled and slurry, but just doesn't have any level of balance on this mix. She's clipping and constantly just ruining the entire vibe of the song. So okay, this isn't terrible, I will admit. It's pretty well produced for what it is, but whoever produced Whitney Houston vocals should be shot into the sun. It really ruins the song for me. Next. Man alive, it feels like Zeds just dragged away all of his goodwill for me off of the back of his recent batch of singles. I mean, I do really like Alive, but Gassed Up is hot garbage, and coming with this, yeah, I wasn't sure what to expect. Although I will say that collaborating with the better half of GRiZ was definitely a good choice here, and I will admit, this is actually pretty decent. I like the world building with the western atmosphere on the verses, where they have some really nice little melodies floating around in the background, and the drops have a lot more punch to them than I expected, especially for rhythm of this kind. GRiZ just seems to nail the vibe every single time, with the right balance between hard hitting and genuinely good production. That being said, these choral vocals, why are they here? I mean, I get that they're meant to add to the mood, but they just sound so awkward, especially with how the melodies just decide to transition off of them. It's just a very lackluster way. It's just a very half-assed inclusion into a song that otherwise could have been really good. But yeah, this is solid. I don't mind it, but I'm probably not going to return to it much. It's definitely not great. And yeah, that was a very slow week. And wow, this was rough. The worst is easily going to Tuba Demon by Subtronics. What a god-awful song. And the best is probably going to end up going to Ecstasy of Soul by Zeds and GRiZ. Look, it's not a great song. It wouldn't be the best in any other week, but in a week as bad as this, I'm not going to complain about it. It's decent for what it is. Next week, God, I gotta hope it gets more interesting and better than this, because this was miserable. But yeah, that's all for this episode of an analysis of dance. See you next time.